Be liked, be impressive, and you will be successful. Well, this success mantra sounds bit irrational, but this is what Willie Loman, the chief character of the play called Death of a Salesman, believed, and as expected, he was disillusioned. That's because this was not the ideal success mantra and should never be followed. But he believed that by being liked, by being impressive, one could succeed in life. Now, this play, Death of a Salesman, was written by Arthur Miller, a renowned American playwright, and it was first opened in 1949. But before discussing the characters and the theme of the play, uh, let us know a bit about Arthur Miller. Arthur Miller was born in 1915 in Harlem, New York City. He was of Jewish parentage. His father had a women's clothing manufacturer business and was a very prosperous person. But in 1929, the Wall Street crash happened. The stock market crashed in America, causing a great economic depression. And the Miller family also suffered the huge loss. And Arthur Miller had to work very hard actually in his life to earn his livelihood. He enrolled himself in Abraham Lincoln School and graduated from there. And then he enrolled himself in Michigan University. But he was not very good at study. He, uh, he had to work in his daytime to earn his living. Then he started writing plays, and the first play that was played, written by Arthur Miller, was The Man Who Had All the Luck. And he bought a studio in his Connecticut property where he wrote down the first act of the play, Death of a Salesman. Well, it was first titled as It Is in My Head, and the producer suggested that it should be named Free and Clear, but then Arthur Miller, he uh, thought that the ideal name should be Death of a Salesman. And the play was subtitled Certain Private Conversations in Two Acts and a Requiem. Now, this play deals with the American dream. Now, the American dream was that in America, any man who has the potentiality of whatever, he can fulfill his dream, he can fulfill his potentialities. But that American dream actually was corrupted by materialism. American dream becomes equal to material prosperity, and everybody was trying to get rich. But the economic depression happened from 1930 onwards. But after 1940s, uh, after the Second World War, America saw a resurgence in their economic prosperity because the Second World War was kind of a boon for America. America was played a very decisive role and uh, was and saw a very economic growth at that time, unlike many other countries. So after 1940s, in 1950s, there is a kind of a dilemma in the minds of people between the material pursuit and also the true meaning of American dream. And the play was written uh, regarding this theme. So, Death of a Salesman, the chief character is Willie Loman. He is a salesman. There is a history behind the name Loman. Arthur Miller said somewhere that he took the name from a film where there was a detective who tried to expose a uh, gang of robbers but was actually duped by them and was driven by his boss. And he tried to call him and said, Loman, Loman. The name of his boss was Loman. So the Loman named appeared to Miller as the name of a helpless person. So he named the character Willie Loman. He had a dream. He had a dream that his son, his elder son, Beef, he has two sons, Beef, and the younger son is named Happy. And his elder son, Beef, would one day become a hugely successful salesman. And his wife's name is Linda. Linda is a great support of Willie Loman. Willie Loman is now 63 years old. He worked in a farm as a salesman, as a commissioned salesman in Howard Wagner's company. And his neighbor is Charlie. He is a very helpful person, uh, and eventually we come to know that he helps him by providing money sometimes. And his son Bernard is a foil to Beef. Bernard becomes a successful lawyer, but Beef could not become anything. And there are some women characters and other some minor characters, restaurant waiter, Stanley. These are the major characters. And there is a imaginary brother of Willie Loman, Ben, who does not appear physically but appear in imagination. So there is a very interesting narrative technique and dramatic technique used here. Willie Loman often goes back to the past and the imaginary walls of the stage collapsed and the music changes at that time. So Willie Loman has a great dream, but somewhere in the mind he had apprehension that his son Beep probably would not make it because he tried to commit suicide often. He had that gas pipe in his uh, ground flat room where he tried several times to commit suicide. Even he had car accidents. Um, there is a doubt that it was deliberate or not, but he had apprehension regarding his ambition. But Beef and Happy, they were not very good students. In school, actually, Beef failed to clear the math test, but Willie always encouraged him that Beef was a very good footballer, was a very good sportsman, and he looked good. So Willie always said that don't bother about these studies, always try to be look good, always try to be impressive in your talk, and you can make a great deal out of it. So the name of the play, Death of a Salesman. Now this salesman uh, actually derived from a story that was related by Willie. There was a salesman, 80-year-old salesman, deaf single man, who due to his old age could not move uh, many places. He used to sit in his room, just call different persons, and they would come and buy his ware. So it was fascinating for Willie that sitting inside his room just called everybody, and they would come and buy from him. So this was the ideal job, ideal work for him. And when Dave Singleman died, many people came in his funeral to pay homage to him. So he thought that salesman was the ideal work for anybody. But Beef and Happy did not follow his father's advice very strictly. In fact, uh, after they completing their study, after the school, lived elsewhere. And then they came back. There was a story that when Beef failed in math, he requested his father to talk to his math teacher Binbam and request him or talk to him to clear his test. And in Boston, where he went with his father, they discovered a Loman with another lady. And usually the relationship between father and son um, get a bit dark, and he left the place. But Beep and Happy could not make anything. In fact, Happy was the assistant of his company's assistant, and Beep could not do anything. So he returned, and in their home, they discussed many things, what to do. And Beep knew that his father had a big dream regarding him, but he also knew that he would not make it. So he tried to confess to his father that he is an ordinary person and this dream is too big for him. But then his brother Happy suggested him that they should open a sports materials business because he was good at sports. And there's an entrepreneur called uh, Willie Bill Oliver. So they should go to Bill Oliver and should request him to sponsor him so that they could open the sport materials business. And Beef ultimately agreed. And that day, Beef went to the office of Bill Oliver, and Willie Loman went to Howard Wagner. Willie Loman requested Wagner to send him to New York and raised his commission. But he was getting old, and Howard Wagner said that the company does not need him anymore. He said business is business, and it is proved that Willie Loman was saying big things. Actually, he did not earn that much money. And Bill Oliver failed to even recognize Beef. He did not give him enough time. So Beef was disillusioned, and they came back. They meet him in a restaurant, and they at first did not tell him the true thing. And after some time, Bill and Happy went with two women, leaving Willie Loman all alone. And Stanley, the waiter, paid the bill and sent him home. And at night, Willie came to know that Beef had not succeeded in making the deal with Oliver. So he was crushed, and ultimately he committed suicide. And there was an insurance premium due for their home, and so it was his after his death he got a huge amount as an insurance money of his life. So actually Willie Loman sold his own life to buy that uh, policy amount for their home because it was taken in installment. So he had to pay the final installment. And before that, Big confessed that I am dying a dozen, and his father should let him alone, should not pressurize him too much. But Willie had a dream. Willie knew that his son would not make it, so he committed suicide. And in his funeral, it was a stark contrast to the funeral of Dave's single man, where a huge crowd gathered. But here, no outsider came in Willie Loman's funeral, only the family members, Charlie, Bernard, they appeared and mourned the loss of the person who dreamed so big. So the play actually revolves around the American dream, the race after materialism, materialistic uh, enjoyment. But people should remember that everybody had their own potentialities, had their own likings, and they should not get disillusioned by the outer appearance or the outer glow, but they should develop their inner qualities and they should concentrate on it. So the play ends with in a very tragic manner, and after the performance was over, the first performance was over in 1949, the audience almost cried for a long time, and the play was a hugely popular play, was performed 742 times, and it was uh, later adapted in a movie where the famous actor Dustin Hoffman played the role of Willie Loman. And Arthur Miller's other major plays are All My Sons, The Crucible. The Crucible play was regarding the Salem witch hunt, and A View from the Bridge. He also wrote theatrical scripts like The Misfits. Um, he was also married for a brief time to the Hollywood diva Marilyn Monroe, but later they were divorced. Arthur Miller later wrote an autobiography, Time Bends a Life, and he was chosen as the president of PEN, PEN, the highest literary organization in America. And in 2005, he died in Connecticut, suffering from cardiac problems.